But I got Matt Miller. Matt Miller in the middle, as we like to call him, and Andy McNamara.
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going? You guys are the obvious choice for Destiny 2 because you live and breathe Destiny, from my understanding. Is that correct?
Well, we play a lot of Destiny together, Andy and I.
I would say we played an unreasonable amount of Destiny 1.
Yes.
And over the last whatever
last week,
I don't even know. I don't even know what day it is. I have played a lot of Destiny 2. Yes.
In particular, for reasons we will get into. Yesterday, I finished my session of Destiny, and my eyes were crossed, and I couldn't even think straight.
At some point in this, are you like, maybe is this too much Destiny? Or is it ever like, I need a day off, and then like the next day rolls around, and you're like, no, I'm playing Destiny.
To be fair,
I do. No, it shouldn't. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
There's a couple confounding factors here, right? I mean, one is that we do take seriously the goal of trying to offer a review and other sorts of coverage post-release as soon as we can. But we also want to be responsible in seeing everything that the game has to offer, and the game is really big. If you take into account, I mean, somebody who's just logging and creating a character and playing through the story is going to be like, oh, doesn't take that long.
Right.
But if you're trying to understand the balance between all the 3 different classes and all their subclasses, and you want to see the Crucible stuff, you want to see strikes, you want to do all the adventures, you want to do all the exotic quests, you want to do the raid, it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And there's a lot of systems too. I mean, like even after playing hardcore for a week, I think even last night was when we were playing, just running
how
around,
does this work?
How does this work? Yeah, like I don't understand the system. Do you understand the system? And we kind of like discuss the system and try to figure out what it means, how it works.
Yeah.
And because I mean, and that's the other thing too is like when you talk about on day 1, I look at the vault and I go, cool, the vault looks great. They did a great job with the vault. And then
you start filling up your vault.
Yeah, and then 7 days later, you're like, I hate this vault. It like they could have. You just say to yourself, I can't believe after all the problems we had with Vault in Destiny 1, I'm sitting here a week in on Destiny 2 going, oh my God, I am inventory managing already.
Yeah,
already am I doing that? And one of the things that eventually broke me to some degree in Destiny, the original game, was I hated logging in and spending 30 minutes in front of my vault, deleting stuff, managing stuff, moving stuff around.
And that is not an exaggeration, by the way. It did reach the point that it would take like 20, 30 minutes.
It was ridiculous. And the other thing too is it was a heartbreaking moment too in that game because you wanted to. There's a lot of guns in Destiny. That's one of the charms of Destiny is that there are a ton of guns. And some of them I go out and I shoot them and I go, all right, I hate this gun. Delete it, no problem. Walk away. Don't think about it. There's a lot of guns I try and go, oh, I kind of like this gun. I think this gun's good for this situation or for this situation. I'm going to put this in my vault. And eventually, like in Destiny 1, it got to the point, and this is not early on. This is like 3 months in, where I had to make hard decisions about guns that I
much less 3 years in.
Yeah, much less. Right? Yeah. I mean, like this was a game that eventually, even the ones that I said, oh, I think I'll find a place to use this gun, eventually was replaced by this gun really matters in that vault. And you had to get rid of it. It was like, Fatebringer and a bunch of other guns that I really liked, I deleted.
Yeah.
The devil you know, the devil you don't. I mean, all these guns got destroyed over time because of the vault. And to be a weekend and be messing with it is a little annoying. Sorry, we went on a vault.
Now would be an appropriate time to just offer a little bit of a disclaimer about everything I think we're going to be talking about today, because we did talk about Destiny 2 about a week ago.
Yeah.
And talked about like first impressions, I think all of which were very positive. Andy and I and you, Ben, are all like pretty serious Destiny players, and as such, there's a temptation to fall into the trap of talking about all the things that are problems.
Right.
And so, I'm going to try to circle back to this concept as much as possible, but just to kind of throw it out there as we get going, I want to make the point that Destiny 2 up to this point has been a very, very good game.
Right.
It's a very big game, a very complex and rich game with a lot of different things that you can do in it. I don't want that idea to get lost in the shuffle, because I'm very convinced, especially after yesterday.
Well, I had
and
a
run at the raid,
times.
that we're gonna get down and dirty here with a few very close to the weeds, in the weeds sorts of discussions.
Like last week, you guys talked about how great. I mean, it looks great.
Yep.
The sound is amazing. I mean, the gunplay is still, I think, if not the best gunplay, up there, top 5 gunplay. I mean, I assume that's all kind of an accepted norm of like Destiny. I mean, I think there's people that like the loop of Destiny. There's people that don't like the loop of Destiny, right? And like you're in the loop or you're out of the loop. And Destiny 2 doesn't necessarily break the loop.
No, no, it doesn't. It actually doesn't break the loop in a way that surprises me a little bit. I thought there was going to be a little bit more stuff that changed out the way that the end game or the cyclical game or whatever you want to kind of call that, how that stuff kind of works.
I was actually hoping to talk to you guys about that. We had. Like you said, we talked about Destiny last week, and this week we're hoping to like kind of dig in a little bit deeper, go into this weeds a little bit, and you guys went straight for the weeds.
We did. We did.
Which is good. But yeah, like it's interesting to get the vibe around the office with the GI crew, because outside of you two, like most people at GI played Destiny 1 and they're kind of, it's okay they bounced off pretty quick, I feel like. Whereas this time, it feels like the vibe around the office is, man, Destiny 2 is really good. It seems like people are getting into it more than the first one. And just from your guys' perspective, who really liked the first Destiny, what do you think it is about that's kind of like attracting to them? Because to me, the loop feels very similar. I don't feel like they've changed the core elements of it. Maybe it's just better polished.
It's better polished.
Yeah,
it is better polished, and there's a better on ramp. Like I think. And the better on-ramp actually does cause some sorts of problems. What I mean by that is that the early story stuff, which you can play, single player, or you can play with your friends or whatever, that is a straight line through a really engaging story that's understandable. It's a coherent story that pretty much anybody can wrap their head around. It's got a really cool ending with some great missions along the way. And the game almost demands that you do that. And in so doing, I think that a lot of the people who in the first Destiny might have gotten lost because they started playing through and then they're like, okay, I've kind of played to a point where like I've hit the level cap, but I guess I'm not done.
Well, that's because they didn't explain
stuff.
Yeah. And or you didn't know that you had to go at that point. You had to go do strikes.
Right. You had to go do strikes, or you needed to go do this particular activity so that you get. None of that is there, right? Like the early hours of Destiny 2 are very much like, okay, do story mission 1, then story mission 2, and so on and so forth, with very little deviation in the early hours, and that I think does help the game to get more people understanding its systems and everything. And but it also
not to interrupt, but I mean there are 2 brilliant points where it's actually annoying when you do it a second time on your alt. But there's one of the great things I think they did in this story is there's 2 breaks where you have to get to level 11 and you have to get to a level 15, where it forces you to go learn mechanics that the first game didn't force you to go understand.
What do you mean by the mechanics?
I mean, go do a public quest.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Like that it got you into the things that the world had to offer, and this world is so much better than the last one that like it still feels kind of like you're in the story mode, but you're in the open world part, and it kind of forces you into that. Where the first game, you just kind of went from mission to mission to mission to mission,
right,
until it was over, right? Yeah. And so there's those kind of weird, I don't know, intermissions along the way that you kind of do some different stuff in. I think I'm trying to reinforce your point. I think you're ultimately getting to where it does manage to get those 2 parts kind of in there and to be a part of the story. But then as you get to the end, you realize that things like, I think to the point you're trying to get, like strikes were completely left out.
Yeah, you get to the end of the story and it's very possible you haven't done a cooperative strike yet.
Yeah,
it's very possible that you haven't done like a Crucible match yet. I mean, they introduced some of that stuff to you, but the motivating principle for progression continues to be the story until that story is complete, because at that point, a lot of other stuff opens up. Some really important stuff, even some spoilery stuff that it's weird to think about because it was days ago now for us, but for other people who haven't finished the story, there's some really important things that happen after the credits roll
Right,
that almost open up a second game, kind of like
in
second-
MMO, like traditional MMO, it's like the game starts once the like story's over.
Correct,
Right.
yeah.
That's kind of how it feels with Destiny, and like those moments where you do have to gain levels to unlock the next bit of the campaign.
Yeah.
And whether I think about it, like I think that's maybe kind of smart because like gives you a break where normally in a game where it's like, well, I have to grind to get to a level to unlock this thing, like that's annoying. But in Destiny, it's like, well, no, we're making you take a break. Now go play Destiny. Like these are the things in Destiny you're going to do anyway. Like this is
we're
still a
teasing
game.
the stuff you're eventually going to kind of do.
And the open world stuff is really good in this one. I mean, like I feel like they increase the pace and the ability to find public quests, which, you know, if you were in Destiny 1, I had an app out that was telling me where the public quests were going to be.
A quest was going to be.
And we would like split up across a zone and be like, I'm going to be by the crater, you by, and then like whoever with the public quest would happen, we would call it
converge.
out, and then we converge on the point. I mean, that's the kind of level of, like, that's how we had to take it to solve those things, right?
And if you bring somebody new into that equation, they'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is bonkers. Why do you play this game? And of course, the answer to that was that there were all these other things about the game and the community experience of the game and the raids and all that great stuff that was attractive, that made doing those chores worth it. Mm-hmm. They've stripped out a lot of those chores. It's just more like go in, do the fun stuff that Destiny lets you do.
Yeah.
No material farming.
No material farming. Exactly.
Well, as people who really liked the first iteration there of the first game, is there stuff that they stripped out that you guys feel are now kind of like missing a little bit from the game that you're like, well, I actually kind of liked that when I had to do that originally?
My biggest takeaway about the game is how many. In most cases, how many fewer options there are. I think that in some cases that leads to some really smart, interesting gameplay dynamics. For instance, the way they've structured subclasses, after really wrestling with it for a while, I've ultimately come out on the side of thinking that it's generally a good thing that there's really like two clear subclass. For each subclass, there's two clear paths that each offer an optimal and interesting way to play. Now, I struggle with that though because it gives me less options. It's just fewer interesting choices that I can make with my character. The same is true with guns. The guns just have fewer customization options. It's true with things like what you do in the game. There's very odd choices about like not letting you replay story missions except in a very prescribed, structured way where you go and you do these like meditations with Ikora Ray that lets you replay.
And you can only do so many. You can
only do three a week.
Yeah, you can't be like, oh, I want to go play that mission. Yeah. No, you can't.
So you can't choose to go back and do the story missions you want to play. You can't choose which Crucible matches you want to play. You just choose from one of two playlists, either quick play or competitive.
Which is annoying.
And it is all to a broader goal of streamlining and simplification and making it easy so that if somebody is playing the game, whether it's for the first time or for the millionth time, somebody who's playing the game can go into it and just be like, okay, I'm playing Crucible. I'm going in. Let's do quick play. Quick play is going to get me into some matches. It's going to be a few different types of matches, and maybe I like some of them, maybe I don't like some others, but I'm in that game. There's no question about things, but that lack of options does rub me the wrong way sometimes as a longtime player.
Right.
But to the same point, not having to grind experience to level up your character's talents, not having to level up guns, things like that are kind of, I mean, like, it's nice to not have to do that. I remember you'd get a gun before and you go like, I'm going to level this up to see if this is any good.
To see if I even want to play with it.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you would sit or you'd burn other resources into it to level it up immediately. But I mean, it was a weird system to some degree. That one, like, here's this gun. It doesn't quite work yet, but after you use it a lot, it'll finally
it's
work.
really cool. Finally,
not knowing if it'll be awesome when it's fully leveled, I can see that was annoying. But there was something about like leveling up those guns that I liked. Like there was an element to that, whereas like I'm progressing, like this thing is getting better as I like journey through the game.
Yeah,
that I do kind of miss.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, and that speaks again to that issue that I constantly come back to with this game, with Destiny 2, is this idea that there were some hard decisions that in many cases were ultimately
For the good
of the broader game experience for all players, but you lose some things,
Sure.
right? That I am completely with you, Ben. I miss that. There's something that was really exciting about seeing the different pieces of equipment that you had each have their own progression about them, just like a character did. There's a reason we all love role-playing games that let us improve a character, because there's something exciting about taking something from not very good to being really awesome. And you don't have that anymore with guns. But you have guns that drop and are immediately great to use.
I also would explore those talents a lot more on those guns. Do you know what I mean? Now I kind of open them and go like, well, whatever.
Use this gun.
Or I'm not looking at trying. I mean, I'm trying to do it more now as I've got like a weekend, and I'm really finding the guns that I like, and I'm trying to see, what does this talent do?
Yeah.
How does this change this up? Which scope is my favorite of these scopes? And trying to, sharpen the pencil a bit as we go forward, because we are at raid time now. But I think there's definitely there's some feeling. I think for hardcore people, there's a little bit of feeling of loss, and there's a feeling of gain, right? It's tough. I'm glad I'm not writing the review.
A little tease there. I know you guys are exotic hunters, you could say.
Yeah.
You guys like to collect all the guns, and I was certainly nowhere near getting them all, but it's definitely fun when you get those new ones. Is that it seems like that was the big chase in the last game. Is there more here, you think, like long term, than just getting all the guns, or is that enough?
I certainly haven't gotten all of the exotics yet after dozens of hours of play. I'm not exaggerating, dozens of hours in the last week. I think they do a good job again of introducing that dynamic of the exotic collection and the fun of that. They introduce it earlier. They build it into the story. There are 2 exotics that you get as you progress through the game, both a weapon and an armor piece. And that, I think, is a very smart move. It gets players invested in what's compelling there, and why those guns are different.
And that they know they exist.
And they know they exist. I mean, there are definitely players I knew who played a not insignificant amount of Destiny 1 and never got an exotic.
Right. It was weird to get an exotic. I think I got an exotic before I'd even gotten a legendary. Like, just like how it rolled.
Sure.
out.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. Just like
no,
this
I think
time
that's
around.
very true in this version. Yeah.
So there's a lot of fun stuff there. Sometimes recycling old content into a new game is considered a bad thing, but in this case, at least with the exotics, the fact that they've reintroduced some old favorites is something I quite like. I like seeing the return of some games of some weapons like Mida or Hard Light, but an improved version of it.
Yeah.
And then there's some fun new ones that I've encountered. So I'm digging the exotic collection so far.
I feel like the rate of exotic acquisition, like being Ingrams, and other things is greatly increased. Like I already have 2 exotic ships. You know what I mean? And I got an exotic speeder. Things like that are kind of. It's always fun to get those. I mean, I think that's always like kind of a high point in the game. I think because the game is giving them at a higher rate, I feel like I'm getting a lot more repeats this go.
Sure.
I like my Warlock has this, for there being 20 or 25 different, I don't even know what the number is. It might even be higher. I've gotten the same 3 helms twice. Do you know what I mean?
That does happen.
I'm just repeating the same items, which isn't too bad. But I do think.
And is by the way, to use a familiar term in the Destiny community, working as intended.
Yeah, working.
I mean, that is when you get repeats in this game, that is your signal that it's time to use that as fuel for an infusion, right? Rather than like pretty much anytime you get a new exotic, it's real hard to convince yourself to be like, whatever, I'll just dismantle it to improve my power. They make that a little bit easier this time because it's easier to build a new version of an exotic you've already found than it used to be. But it's also that they recognize that if you get that 3rd helm of the same variety, you can use that to pop up one of your legendaries or one of your other exotics that you like.
Because the eye level game in this particular one is like there's soft caps that you hit and eventually exotics or these kind of power emblems or engrams. Sorry, I don't know what. I'm sorry, I was up late last night playing Destiny 2. They are they're the only way, right? It's so like kind of completing these major quests give you items that move you forward. Everything else is basically about 10 eye levels behind what you.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like. So basically, blues and purples in the world very quickly become eh. Did it turn into an exotic? Nope. All right, delete.
Well, and the progression's also, it's worth noting that I think the progression's going to be different for people who come at the game after it's been out for a few weeks compared to that first week. There's a lot of, if you're committed to hitting close to cap in that first week, you have a limited number of milestones. Milestones reward good engrams that you can get. And there's also a limited number of exotic quests that you can complete that are going to up your level
significantly.
And, once the raid is now out and the raid is offering higher level stuff there, there's going to be trials that starts this weekend. Presumably there's going to be some like Iron Banner stuff at some point that offers higher level stuff. So all of those things together will make it so that there's a little bit more reasonable, some very clear paths at the end game to get those high level items. As it was in the first few days, people who cared a lot about getting to those high points were like, okay, I have to do this quest first, and then this quest, and then I need to go talk to this person. Do not turn this quest in, though.
Yeah.
Go over to this person and do this other thing. It was like this whole weird,
this guy drops an item that maybe will level you up enough to get this. Yeah.
I mean, essentially,
that stuff's kind of fun, though, too,
it can be fun.
It is fun, but I mean, like, I played my first character, and it kind of just did things the way I wanted to do them along the way, and then, like, you get to the end, and you're like, so many mistakes.
Yes.
You look at
screwed that guy up.
You screwed up so many things to get to the eye level, and this is just I'm totally min-maxing, by the way. This is not normal, healthy behavior. I want to be very clear, and it's just like disappointing because you hit a bit of a wall right in this early week. And Miller's right; it smooths out over time, but in the early time, there's only these few options. So I of course had to make an alt immediately and do it the right way, which was to get my eye level up through grinding public events and then do all the milestones, as Miller says, in a particular order. In fact, on my alt, there's ones I still haven't done yet because I'm going to save the Mida till the very, very, very end.
Because you really want the Mida to be super good.
Because I want the Mida to be as high as possible.
Yeah.
Are you doing this with a different class, or are you doing this with the exact same?
Well, there's some people who power level by leveling a hunter to the end, getting all the gear, putting all the gear in the vault, deleting that hunter, and then doing it again, and then putting the gear on.
Yep.
Because that immediately ups your eye level, and then when you do the quest again, you get higher level versions of it. I am not that insane. What I have just been doing is I played my hunter first. I've been playing my warlock second, but the second run, because I was able to take the guns. Once you hit level 20, you can take the guns from your first guy. So immediately I went to 255, I think, eye level on my warlock, and within an hour,
it goes really fast,
or maybe even 2 hours, just like doing. I just went out and just did public events, just spammed them, and all I got was every single blue I went, whoa, got like 2 eye level, blue, whoa, 2 eye, until I got to about 275, maybe even. Yeah, I think like 275, and then at that point I started to do some of the power, kind of milestone quests, but I was very selective about which ones I wanted because I wanted the bad gun to be the first exotic quest I did, so that because I knew I wouldn't use it, but it would increase my eye level so that when I got the gun I liked, i.e. Mida, I would have a higher eye level, and then the gun I wanted would come in at a higher level. So it gets really complicated.
How do you think people figured this out at the same time? It's all just people on Reddit.
It is. I mean,
crunching numbers, and
there's a beauty to the game's interaction model. It is built now. I think Bungie is very conscious of building it to be played as a community. And playing Destiny 2 in isolation, completely in isolation, is really a mistake. Even if you're I would say that I myself am somebody who generally prefers solo gaming most of the time. I like that experience, and I think there's a lot of people like me out there. But and there's certainly places in Destiny 2 and lots of time that you can spend in the game where you do it just by yourself. But to not engage with the public events, to not go into Crucible, to not try the raid, to not do a Nightfall, just in the name of like, I don't play with other people, is completely missing the point of what Destiny and Destiny 2 do well. And that by extension moves out into the community and the way they've designed certain things that are meant to be discovered through experimentation.
Right.
And any one person is just not going to figure that out.
Yeah.
But over time, there's this aggregation of information about, okay, this is how you do this thing. This raid challenge or this secret in this one mission, this is how you do it. Okay, we figured out how to get to this one room, but we can't figure out how to get past this room. Anybody figure out how to get past this room? And then somebody else figures that out. And that ongoing conversation is really interesting.
Yeah, it's like the game spilling out into the real world
It
and
is.
then kind of funneling back into the game, which
Yep.
is kind of cool. I like how that works, and like a good example of that, I think, is the raid,
Mhm.
which you guys have mentioned a couple times, which I'd love to pick your brain about a little bit and
Yeah.
see. You guys kind of rolled in this morning with maybe a bit of a raid hangover, it looked like. So how late were you guys up?
Well, we started after the lead wave. The lead wave started right, obviously, at
noon.
Was
launch.
that
Noon
intentional?
Central?
You guys were like,
no.
Well, no.
We
We
just-
just that's when our group was free, and,
Okay.
and we knew we wanted to play yesterday, but
People
were-
have jobs.
yes, people
Sure.
have jobs, and we weren't so hardcore that we were like, even. And I don't mean to imply that this was even a possibility, but we weren't trying to go for like world first or anything.
Right.
And so we were going in, but we did go in blind, right? Like we weren't following a guide or anything. As such,
That's my favorite part. But I'd like to point out the my favorite part of any new MMO raid in general,
Yeah.
Destiny raid, is let's go in and see if we can figure it out.
Yeah,
like
not knowing anything.
not knowing anything, and that's why I think going quickly is so important to me. Is that over time I feel like the spoilers are going to happen.
it's really hard to avoid them.
So
It's like waiting to watch Star Wars on Blu-ray or something.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
well,
so-
something's gonna happen. You're gonna
So
hear
we want to
something.
get there and we want to try to figure it out. And there are times we hit walls and we look for help, let's say. But I mean, for most of the stuff
We
that we
didn't
did
really
that
much last night. It was
we didn't.
pretty straight.
We figured it out pretty much on our own.
Oh, cool. So you guys didn't look up anything?
We didn't. So
do you feel like that means this raid's just easier, or
No.
was it just-
no, we did not finish it.
Okay.
No.
We played from 5 to about 2, 1:30, something
1:30
like
like that.
Good grief.
And with a couple 5-minute breaks in there to
Sure.
scarf some food
I
or
need to eat something
yeah.
immediately.
Anyway, it was. I think Andy and I both went in presuming incorrectly that Bungie had followed the same design principles for their raid that they followed for the rest of Destiny 2, which is to say, let's make this accessible. Let's
Okay.
make this friendly to newcomers. Let's try to find ways to
Introduce people to raiding.
to raiding.
We want in Destiny 2 more
Yeah.
people to be involved in raids.
Yes.
That was our assumption of like the way that they would have approached this.
that was completely wrong.
More than wrong. Yes.
This is, I mean, it's hard to definitively say this right now because we're only 24 hours in and we're still stinging from the pain of trying some of these encounters over and over and over again. But I think this is the most mechanically complex raid
Oh,
that
interesting.
they have released. And that's saying a lot because King's Fall was crazy. King's Fall had all sorts of weird little timing things. Okay, now you need to run around this pillar for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
but don't run around it for 45 seconds because by then you need to be over here. Like King's Fall had a lot of crazy stuff like that. But this raid has requires a lot of communication. It has all sorts of things you need to be paying, that everybody on the team needs to be paying very close attention to. I think we're trying to talk around some things
Yeah.
because it is only a day after launch, and there's lots of people who are listening
Well,
who
I mean,
don't
I
want to
think
be spoiled on it.
I mean, I would say if you're listening and you haven't done the raid yet, skip ahead. Right. I mean, I think it's hard to talk about the raid and not talk about some of the things that are both good and bad about it. Right. So for
We can
people-
talk about things without giving solutions anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can talk about things like giving solutions.
I think we can say that the set piece here is that it's basically this grand Roman Egyptian empire pleasure palace is sort of the idea.
I said it looked like a Trump hotel. It's got
Yeah.
so much gold. It's so gaudy.
Interesting.
It does have a sort of Vegas casino vibe to it almost.
Okay.
And there's this so it's just this really, really big space, this palace that you're moving through. kind of, and the implication through these brief voiceover moments that you get from the Emperor of the Cabal is that you're going through for his entertainment.
Okay.
Right? He
like Smash TV.
Yeah, it's very much like Smash TV. He's basically everything that we've gone into has been like, it's meant to be a puzzle from this guy. He wants to see how you perform.
He wants to challenge you, and he wants to be entertained by you.
It feels very. It doesn't like the other ones felt like, oh, I'm exploring this space.
Mm-hmm.
This is like an established
set for you.
Yeah, this is a set that you have walked into, a set gladiatorial challenge that is there versus like, Crota, I'm coming for you, and like going into their hive and fighting them. This is nothing like that. I mean, and I think that's why they kind of upped the challenge mechanics to the level they did. I mean, I think when we talk about this one, like the things I felt like we were doing to beat things were at the level that kind of hard mode did in the previous one. Like that's the kind of level of engagement they were requiring.
Yeah.
And the kind of, I mean, when we beat things, we beat them by a sliver. And if 305 is indeed the hard cap, which I've heard, or the current soft cap of eye level, I mean, we had 2 guys or 3 guys in the raid that were really close to 300 or over 300.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was one of them close to that. And I mean, I could shoot things, but I didn't feel like they were falling over.
Yeah.
No.
Right. So there was a challenge there in just killing things. But moreover, killing things was not the problem.
No.
The problem was understanding and executing the mechanics, and the mechanics having a lot to ingest. I mean, like things like you need to watch this debuff,
Right.
and pay attention to this buff, where this guy's going to spawn, where this guy's going to spawn, all happening in very quick succession.
Right.
And it requiring a lot of communication and figuring out.
And for people who've never maybe played a Destiny raid, for example, like for me, like I agree, those are some of the more interesting elements because it doesn't function like anything else in Destiny. Even the strikes, where you, in this case, you have a 6-person team going into a raid, and each person I feel like is more necessary, let's say, or
definitely
have more roles.
To
the point where it's like, all right, one person needs to stand here and hold this thing, and then another person needs to stand here and use this gun, and then when this thing happens, we all run over here. Like it's that kind of a coordinated assault that you're figuring out, which is kind of fun.
More so than ever.
In this case.
yeah.
And it sounds like the sort of story conceit that they've come up with helps maybe explain away some of that.
The kind of silliness of it.
Sort of coordination of it, which is kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's neat. There's been a general trend that has continued with this one in the design philosophy that has moved away from there being a single person who is the responsible party, and instead towards everybody has a role, has a very specific role that they need to be tackling. And I like that about it. There's a necessity that if 5 people are doing what they're supposed to do, and the 6th person isn't, you're not progressing. Like you just aren't.
Yeah, you are not.
So there could definitely be a weak link in the team.
There can definitely be.
Come on, Gary.
And to be fair, I think most of us have been the weak link at some point in some raid encounter over the years. But this set of encounters. Every one of them is built that way.
Well, the thing is, on this one, every person in this particular raid, there's a little yellow diamond in the bottom right-hand corner. And so whenever someone dies, a timer starts that you have 30 seconds to res that person or everyone dies.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And every person has that little yellow diamond. That's your res. So every person gets 1 res.
Oh, you only get 1.
You get 1. Every person gets 1 res.
Okay.
So there's 6. In theory,
so
there are 6.
one person can die a bunch, right?
Yeah, one person could die 5 times and everyone saved him. But if I died 5th and I was the 6th res, then it's 5, right? So it's over. And so any mistake is limited in who and what you can do it. And depending on what mechanic is going on, it could happen at a time where you're like, that person died across the map. We have to go into this safe room for 15 seconds. We now have 10 seconds to try to get to that body and try to res them. While all these other mechanics are going on, I mean, that's when I talk about the kind of razor's edge that this one is demanding. And to the point that you said that everyone has a job, the second someone dies doing their job,
things really fall apart
it
quickly.
really falls apart really
Yeah.
quickly. And that was the hardest. The hardest encounter we did last night was one where very tight timing across the event. Everything had a lot of gates, let's call them, that you had to get through in a timely fashion with a lot of random things going on at the same time. So anytime someone screwed up, unless it was like in the third phase, let's say is a 3-phase fight, we were dying. We would just kill ourselves because it was over. Like there was no coming back from a bad phase 1.
Yeah, just start over.
Yeah, if the phase 1 was bad, it's over. If you got a good phase 1, or even like that was a okay phase 1, we're gonna keep going forward, right? And I think even maybe when we beat it, we might have only had an okay phase 1.
Yep.
No, we had the best phase 1 we've ever had,
And an okay
phase 2,
Yep.
and then phase 3. Thankfully, things melted very, very, very
We had
efficiently.
some supers left over and did what we need to do. But it was a challenge.
It was. We spent 3. I'd say we spent 3 or 4 hours of our 7 or 8 hours we did last night on this one encounter.
that when you do it right takes 10, 15 minutes.
Well, it's like, I mean,
Something like that.
This is where we get into the like. I feel like so this raid's weird. You go into this main area that's got like kind of a main hub, and it has you do this kind of key challenge where you need to get keys and bring them to the door. Right. And there's a lot of elements that make that challenging, right? So it's not that simple. But every time you have to go back to this middle, you have to redo this event. So you do it once, you open the door, you go do this boss. You go back to the middle, you do that event again.
A minor variation on it.
A minor variation of it. Go open a different door, go do that boss.
Come back.
Come back to the middle, do that event again. Once again, a little bit more difficult.
Sure.
Right? As each, like we had to change our strategy as we went to like that third return, but it's like, really? We got to do this again? And then we went to the spot where we thought we were at the boss, and we are like, let's go to the tower. Let's turn in some of our stuff. Let's get the stuff. Let's come back. When we came back, we had to do that event again to go back to the boss. It didn't save us or checkpoint us at that.
It's a weird checkpoint system that always takes you back to the entrance.
So you're never quite sure when it's checkpointed?
Well, you always go back to the beginning of the palace.
If you don't leave, you stay at the
Yes,
same. The
right.
checkpoints make sense.
But when you leave and you go back in, you go back to the entrance of the palace, and then you have to do the hub event to go to your next space. It doesn't like make you redo the whole thing.
Mhm.
It just makes you redo
that one.
the next thing. It's one of a few things about this raid. I mean, one of the just to be real clear about it, one of the reasons that we don't have a review out there yet is that like I think it would be irresponsible where we are at in the raid right now to try to pass judgment on it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things I don't understand about it yet, and
I'll pass judgment on it.
and I'm still trying to like gauge some things. But there are some things that I think are things that let's use the word questionable.
Okay.
Questionable design decisions here, and it's maybe the first time that
I think questionable is the word Andy was looking for. Right?
there are some one of the things that I think is questionable, not that I'm ready to say is bad, but the consistently raids in the past have offered a reward system that lets you build up towards success. So you succeed at encounter 1 and you get some stuff that maybe helps you do a little better the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to encounter 2, you get a chest, you open it up, you get some stuff that helps you do better, and so on and so forth. They don't do that here. They have a reward system that, at least at first glance, appears to be built around the same reputation mechanic that the rest of Destiny 2 uses. So you get these tokens that you can't do anything with until you've beaten the raid.
And also too, like we did get a power Ingram early on, everyone got an upgrade, I think, from the first boss. There were 3 other items that did drop. I mean, the chests just are dropping less. They're dropping this rep token that we assume like you turn in 10 rep tokens, you're going to get an Ingram that opens up something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or you could choose something. I don't know. I mean, once again, we're trying to stay blind a little bit here.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that does. We tried to go to the tower. We tried to get in the room in the tower. Let's put it that way. We wanted to get in there to see where this NPC is that gives you the stuff back, to see what the rewards were, but they don't let you in that room. So to Miller's point, we're literally, if you weren't one of the 3 people who were lucky enough to immediately get an item from the event, there was no loot, right? Yeah. There was no loot. There were only these things, and the Ingram we got was, it gave us an item from the open world, not from the.
Yeah, it wasn't like a raid drop.
It wasn't a raid drop. It was just this is an eye level improvement for you.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a little like, even like we finished the second of the hub events, and we ran over to, there's a chest. It's empty. Maybe they rolled down to the bottom. No. We got nothing.
Just like crestfallen.
And like after so many like hours of work, with the first certainly later on, we're going to get to the point that those raids, you're going to go into the first encounter and be like, breeze through it
and not care about the drop.
It's going to be fine. But especially when you're first doing a raid, there is something that's really satisfying about like, all right, well, guys, we didn't get to the boss. I mean, we knew that was going to be really hard.
But you got some rewards.
We did something tonight. We got through some stuff. We opened that chest. You know, Andy, you got that cool gun. That's pretty cool. You got that hand cannon. Great. Okay, we're good. And you didn't have that sense here, and that was a little disappointing to me.
Yeah.
We'll see how that shakes out. Sure.
So it sounds like the raid's more complicated than ever, and maybe that's not alwast for the best.
I mean, I think it's
overall.
Like,
it sounds like you guys are having fun, right?
One of the things I want to clarify my negativity, like the first and third kind of major encounters. The first encounter, I think we'll call the kind of what would you call it? Like the kind of bathhouse?
Yeah.
I think the bathhouse is maybe a good terminology.
That's what it is.
It's a great fight. It's fun. It's got cool
awesome
it's got cool mechanics. You do a lot of interesting things. There was a lot of stuff. We had a great time solving it. Mm-hmm. You know, going like, what does this do? Oh wait, that moves a chain. What does that do? It was a great fight, a great encounter, a great Destiny encounter, and you're like, man, they're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to that hub thing and you're like, this is fun. It was fun to figure out.
Stuff, yep.
It was a little disappointing to do it multiple times, right? Because we knew how it worked. And I feel like when I do the raid the 9th time, that will be my then, 9 times 3. It starts to get exponentially, I will have done that encounter so many millions of times by the time I farm the raid, which is unfortunate. But once that happened, we got to this kind of it was the second boss. And the third boss, by the way, the third boss had this like weird... It's called the Gauntlet, so I don't think I'm giving away too much when I say that. It has the 2 guys, I will call them runners, and what they have to do is kind of outrageously silly. When you talk about Smash TV or Running Man, it is totally Smash TV or Running. It is totally that, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of crazy. That's where we stopped last night. We were eventually just too tired and couldn't go on, but we were doing it. I was having fun at that event.
Yep.
Once again, shooting things. This second event, that one that we spent 4 hours on, the core mechanic. Spoiler alert for anyone who wants to, is that they want you to use stealth in Destiny, which Destiny isn't necessarily a stealth game, but this mechanic is based around using stealth and having another 2 people be
spotters.
Okay. So it's like spotters and stealth is essentially the mechanic, and it. Like most stealth mechanics in most games, because you lock up something, you're like, oh, that guy totally can't see me. That guy can totally see me. Okay, let me go stand over here. Okay, that guy can totally see. Like that the mechanic's not really apparent and obvious. You obviously, don't go hit him, right? Like you figure that stuff out. But there's other things you're like, oh, I can jump over from this column to this column because I'm above the whole fray. I'm a spotter. What does it matter? All night long, 75% of the time they would jump over and nothing would happen. The other 25% of the time, the spotters would go, I have no idea. I got spotted. It's over.
I don't know how that happened.
We'd all have to go die, start over. Right? And in the stealth, you'd be like, okay, the guy's at the far end of this thing. We're perfectly fine. No, we're not. He ran over here and saw us. And so...
It speaks to that what Andy was saying about like it was almost like playing a hard mode raid, right? Like one mistake through that whole sequence by one person, it was like, okay, start over.
It's over, all right? And if I would have been less annoyed by this encounter and the stealth elements of it if it didn't require like essentially perfect execution. And the thing is that there's a randomness to it. You need to get to various spots in this kind of like, it's kind of a maze. It's hazy. It's dark.
Yeah.
You're kind of crouched in the dirt. The whole thing. It's kind of oppressive to some degree, which I think is intentional, and it's got a kind of interesting vibe. but you need to get to various places randomly, quickly, and solve the. And by the way, there's a couple mechanics that come along that you're going to have to figure out on your own that are also no fun to figure out. But the mechanic is like perhaps the most inventive Destiny boss they've ever made, and I'm like as far as like wow, as a from afar as a production thing and a design idea, this is brilliant. Doing it is not fun, in my opinion. In that particular one.
So people who are probably listening to this and they're like, who have never done a raid, let's say, it might be kind of like, I don't know, maybe. What would you say to people who've never done a raid? Like, should they? Why should they try with it?
I struggle with that question.
That's a hard question.
Every previous Destiny, I have always said, listen, man, if you're not trying the raid, if you're not finding some friends and you're going in and you're just going to just like give it a shot, you're missing out on a big part of the Destiny experience.
The best part of the Destiny experience.
I think that is still probably true here, but I don't know how you would do this if you were like brand new to Destiny. I think it would be so frustrating,
especially coming fresh. You think it'd be more fun if somebody was shepherding you through, or you went online?
Even a shepherd would be hard because because there's so much weight on every single roll.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say perhaps in this event there are 3 super critical rolls, and the other 3 could just kind of follow a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's if they lag behind, if they do anything wrong and they're not like right on top of it, it's over. Like it's really wound tight.
I mean, in Destiny 1, by the time Wrath of the Machine came around, which was a really good raid, but Wrath of the Machine, by that point, you could say to somebody one of 2 things. One was that Wrath of the Machine, if you had a good shepherd, a good Sherpa that was taking you through, you were in pretty good shape, I think. But you also could say, like, all right, Wrath of the Machine is at your level, but like, why don't you go back and try Vault of Glass? It's not going to be that hard right now, and you can like get a feel for raiding. You don't have that here because Destiny 2 is a new game. You can't go back and play the old raids. So there's a weirdness there where for somebody who's never really gotten into it before, I don't know how to advise them.
There's no stepping stones.
Other than just being like, okay, Joe Schmo, like, you've never raided before. You want to have that experience. So you're going to be our one new guy. We're going to bring you in. We're going to have 4 or 5 guys who totally know what they're doing. And we're going to bring in this one new guy. And you're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. I mean, I think you could do that.
I mean, I'm dreading playing with guys that we play with that I know are good.
Yeah.
That I know are good players that have done. I have done
Lots
every
of
raid.
raid,
I have played with. They know my tendencies. I know theirs. And
I
think
your back. You got mine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think about doing this event again with them, and I go, "Oh God!" I mean, just because everyone is going to have to relearn their role, right? And even too, if you went back and you did this, and even if I said, "Hey, this is what you need to do," like here is plain and simple: go A, go to B, go to C, go to D, do this, do that, end. You don't have the experience to understand how it works. Mm-hmm. Right, because it's so random and the world is so kind of, which is why it's such a good, interesting, and maybe the best designed quote unquote encounter they've made. I just don't know if it's the most fun encounter they've made, but it's the most interesting design they've done within the like rules of how you play Destiny, which is a shooter game. To have made this challenge is super interesting, and kudos to them for coming up with it. I just wish they would have put it somewhere else or put a little bit weaker parameters on it.
It's ludicrous to say this because I know how tremendously much work goes into putting one of these raids together. I've talked with these guys about how much time and balance work they put in, but it almost feels like this should be the raid you do after the first raid. It feels like that to me. It feels like there should be a different raid you do
that leads you into doing raids.
Yes, okay. and then you open up Leviathan as this raid that's like
Redonk.
That's very cool. I mean, like the actual art of this space is amazing. Like, it's a really, really cool place that you're going to visit. There's lots of things. I'm very, very convinced there's things that we don't understand yet. We're getting these keys to drop that we don't know what that's about.
Yeah, we don't know. We also we encountered a number of like there's like levers, and there's always like that's one of the things the raids have always had hidden chests in them, which is like always kind of fun to figure out. Which we don't know where those things are yet. There are people who
do.
Yeah.
We haven't looked yet.
And by the way too, and I'm excited to do it again tonight. Like we're gonna play. Everyone is talking in our group. They're like, all right, how do we get on? Can we start earlier? Can we start earlier than 5? Can we do this? You know,
I need more time.
And Miller's like, I got to write my review. I'm like, I got to help Miller write a review. We're working, right? We got to get on this. We're ready to go. I mean, I'd go right now if we had a group ready to go.
Publish. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm excited to go back. And so I, for whatever negative things I've said about this raid and how hard it is, it's super challenging and it's certainly engaging. And if I would have beat this raid in 4 hours, I would have gone like, nah, stupid raid can beat it in 4 hours. So there's a balance.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I want it to be somewhat challenging. Now, that said, if I would have beat this one in 4 hours, I would have said, good on Destiny for like trying to make it more open, as we said before. Like that's what we were going into, expecting it to be more approachable. So that people could see it, people could understand the draw of it, people could farm it, people could see like, hey, I get this gear, this is cool, this is how I power up, to explain the power of raids and how raids elevates your play, right? In this case, it's almost like this, and I think this raid was almost designed for the streamers, for the hardcores, for the people that on day one want to run out. They made it super challenging for us.
It's almost like a counterpoint to the rest of the game.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Which the other game was made for everyone else to be inclusive.
And
this one was like this was like screw everybody else. This is for the old raiders, which is, you could say, is cool. And you could say is too inclusive, right? I think, which is where we're kind of like, that's
too
where
exclusive.
Exclusive, yeah, too exclusive. And that's where I think that's where we're like, I think that's where we're confused as critics, right? I mean, I'm having fun as a guy who likes to raid, right? I'm enjoying it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Destiny responds to this in some way with the next raid that they do whenever that comes out. But yeah. And it'll be also interesting to hear you guys' thoughts when you actually finish the raid. So
I think we did pretty well. I mean, even though it took us like 7 hours to get there, I think World First was many hours.
Oh, I'm watching. I follow a lot of people on Twitter that are like, I watch them play Destiny and I go, wow, like you are really good. You are a fantastic Destiny player. And I saw some of their times and it looked like they were finishing in like 12 hours.
Yeah.
I'm talking about good players, elite players taking 12 hours to finish this. It's not a joke.
Yeah,
it is not a joke. It is. And that said, once all the guides come out and some of the things that maybe we're missing, because we did come up with our own strategy, maybe
there's better ways to do this.
Maybe all my complaints about this second kind of stealth thing are wrong, because like we missed a whole mechanic, but the way we did it and the way we solved it, it was hard. It was really hard, and it was unforgiving. But we'll see what kind of comes out of it. But it has not been a breeze. There has not been a, like, what was it, Crota? Like Crota, they figured out to sit on the ledge and shoot rockets in his face in like 4 hours or something like that. Like people figured that out as a way to beat that boss.
Well, there you go. The lowdown on the Destiny 2 raid. It's a play it if you dare.
It is right now. It's play it if you dare.
Oddly enough, I'm kind of interested in playing it now, and I'm at some point I know I'm going to definitely get there. And
if you want a challenge,
Ben. I mean, when you are ready to roll through there, I think. I mean, you and I have done some raiding together before. I think you're going to get a big kick out of it, and I think people. It is a thing to be. It has an aspirational quality. I'll give it that.
For sure.
Where like for somebody
I aspire to never do that second boss again.
For somebody who can get all of that raid gear and stuff that's going to be rolling out, that is definitely going to be a thing that other players can look at and be like, wow, that's really cool. I really want that. I want to get good enough that I can go into that raid.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, we should probably wrap up this discussion. I know you guys got some raiding to go do. Any final thoughts on Destiny 2 as a whole, or anything else you want to get out there before? Stay tuned for our review, obviously.
Yeah, I think the raid notwithstanding, I can speak to the broader sentiment among my friends and my coworkers here at Game Informer that this is a game that is more welcoming and more accessible to understanding than the previous one. I think if you were scared off by all of the like billions of different currency types and weird leveling structures and how does the system work. A lot of that has been smoothed over.
Not all of it.
Not all of it.
But a lot of it.
But a lot of it has. And so I hope that there will be people who try Destiny 2 or maybe guys and girls who who are Destiny fans who have friends or family that they want to play with, who pull some folks in under the recognition that this time it's I think it's going to be a lot more fun and accessible to get into.
Yeah. Well, I don't envy you writing the review. It's probably going to be like 10 pages long or something like that.
I've already been working on early drafts, and it is very complicated to kind of call everything into a space that's going to fit in a couple pages on a magazine page. But we're going to see how it works.
We'll see how it works. We'll invent a new smaller type or something.
Right, that's what we need.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for being on, Andy and Miller.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for obviously listening to our nerdy geek out on Destiny 2. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you're a Destiny player, you're probably just yelling at us or something.
How wrong we are about everything.
Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.